But I mean, I think there's also, you know, a lot of us, even the most open people, when it comes to things like sexuality, and I was talking to somebody else about this recently. I mean, I don't identify as straight. I've known forever that I didn't fit into the straight box, but I didn't really know kind of, how I identified. So I've never really officially come out to anybody. I mean, people closest to me kind of know. Some do, some don't, I suppose. It's not something that I've ever actually said, hey, I am this. So now I kind of think the most fitting label, if you want, for better term, for me is queer. I like that because it doesn't really pinpoint any one thing. But would I put that on my Facebook page? Would I say that to my grandparents, to my auntie? Probably not. But that's okay, because that's a part of me that I can choose to share, whether I want to or not. And so I think sometimes we need to be aware that we don't have to communicate every single thing. It's our choice. And again, I'm saying this to you, knowing full well that my nan is not going to listen to this podcast.
No, absolutely. Yeah. And that just kind of reminds me of like my own labels as well, and the things that I choose to associate myself with. So like you say, you identify as queer, and that's personal to you and whoever you choose to share it with. On the other hand, for me, like, not talking about sexuality, but talking about like religious beliefs, I don't identify as anything, and I don't attach any labels to what I believe in. I don't even use the labels spiritual, atheist, agnostic. I don't use any of those labels because I don't feel like I fit any of them. But however, there is like a community of people who call themselves ex-Muslims, and I relate to a lot of them the most. And I would only refer to myself as an ex-Muslim within that community, because I don't want that label attached to me either as being an ex anything, so again, it's kind of like, who do you choose to tell? Because I would be an ex-Muslim around them because they understand and we have a shared experience. But to anyone else, I just want to be Hannah, no religion, end of story. That's what I want to be.
I completely relate to that, and I wouldn't it's the same reason why I wouldn't come out as queer in an official sense to my grandparents, because then that would, in their minds, just become, it would almost overshadow the fact that I'm still just Leanne, their granddaughter.
Exactly. And it's like I was talking to someone the other day, and I was like, I want my grandparents, like two of my grandparents already passed away, believing that I was just a shitty Muslim. I mean, for me, it's like, okay, at least they died thinking I was a Muslim, even if I was a bad one. At least they thought that, because that means a lot to them. And yes. I would like my existing grandparents to continue believing that narrative as well, if it makes them happy, because it's such a different generation. To expect them to understand our choices now is very difficult, and I think it comes back to communication, where you kind of have to be very selective of who you share what with, and also be like, is it worth it sharing this with this person?
Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, I completely relate to that. I mean, I think about, like, if my grandparents asked me if they had any reason. I mean, the relationship I'm in is outward appearances, a straight relationship. But that doesn't mean that, God forbid anything happened to me and my current partner. I hope it doesn't. But that doesn't mean that, my next relationship, if there is one, wouldn't be, with a female or. So if my grandparents actually came out and said, Leanne, what is your sexuality? I would be honest with them. I wouldn't lie to them about who I am, because it is who I am. And I don't, I'm not deliberately hiding it. I'm just, Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, no, absolutely, and I respect that. I think for me though, I probably am deliberately hiding it from my grandparents right now.
Which is fair enough.
But yeah, that's a very complicated thing to get into. And you know what? To everyone listening, I will get into that at some point, and I have spoken about this personal decision on many other podcasts as well. So if you want to know more, DM me, and I'll link you up to the podcasts that I have actually spoken about this in quite openly. But I want to go back to the point that we made earlier about communications about sex being so deeply ingrained with us from like what we've learned or things in the media. And it's just like things like you said, like talking about homosexual relationships or explaining that to a kid, or even talking about the way the body is formed. So like a lot of people I spoke to, myself included, we were taught a lot of, like, I know personally myself, I was taught a lot of shame about the female body, especially because it's like I speak about this a lot in my episode, which I've already recorded and will be coming out soon. But yeah, I was kind of like ingrained to feel ashamed of my female physique, and that anything to talk about your body, like talking about your breasts and even the word vagina, were words that we would never use in our family. So to say these things now with such confidence is like, it's like a whole different world that